Welcome everyone. For any new participants, my name is Preston McLaughlin and I am the Senior Transit Planner with PAG RTA. And I'll be facilitating the Transit Working Group meetings for the time being. We are now conducting our meetings on Zoom, and you should be able to have the meeting information up on your screen now. Please note you are all on mute, and to take yourself off of mute, go to the bottom left of your screen. I would like to now start with a roll call, from our voting members, starting with the City of Tucson.
Yes, good morning. This is Rhett, Crown and Shield Transit Administrator for the City of Tucson.
All right, thank you, Rhett. City of South Tucson. Tohono O'odham Nation. Pasquayaqui Tribe. Pima County.
Good morning, it's Jonathan Crow with Pima County.
Hi, Jonathan. Town of Marana.
Hi, Lisa Schaefer, Town of Marana.
Morning, Lisa. Town of Sahuarita. I see Vince is here representing the town of Sahuarita. Town of Oro Valley. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. We can now move on to agenda item number 2, which is just the in-kind form. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated to attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAC collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now.
Hi, I am Lauren McCullough, City of Tucson.
Right. Thank you, Lauren. Anyone else? No, okay. So the time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. And time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. So that concludes agenda item number 2. So now, sorry, stretching. We can now move on to agenda item number 3, which is the revised fiscal year 2024 through 2028 FTA 5307, 5339, and STBG Flex transit funding programming. So for this item, we'll be reviewing the revised TIP transit project funding requests for fiscal years 2024 through 2028 and making any adjustments needed to balance the programmed funding and to keep it within fiscal constraint. Staff have received updates from the participating jurisdictions on the revisions of their requested TIP project funding. Both the original and the revised funding request tables were included in the Transit Working Group packet that was sent out yesterday morning. And so that can be used for reference and review. And hopefully everyone had a chance to look that over before this meeting. Requested amounts and any needed prioritization will be discussed at this meeting, and staff will make any necessary adjustments to the agreed upon funding levels prior to final approval to the Transportation Planning Committee. And I'll be sharing my screen with the most up-to-date funding table, and it's a working document, so I can make adjustments, in real time as we talk through it to get a little closer to aligning the budget for each of those fiscal years. While some considerable adjustments were made, we still need to make further reductions to align the programmed funding and to move the amended project list forward to the Transportation Planning Committee, or the TPC. Currently, we're still over budget, approximately 210,000 for fiscal year 25, 622,000 for fiscal year 26, 1.04 million for fiscal year 27, and 1.27 million for fiscal year 28. So, before going into the details and negotiation, further continued negotiations for these project requests, I would like to allow the jurisdictions, at least the participating jurisdictions, the town of Oro Valley, Pima County, and then the city of Tucson, and then the RTA, to just open up the floor for them to give an update on any of the fiscal adjustments that they've made to their original project requests. And then once we've talked through that, we can then proceed with the discussion on how to further reduce the project funding request so we can stay within fiscal alignment, as I mentioned. So let me share my screen, share the most recent table, and maybe we could ask the city of Tucson to maybe discuss their changes first. I know the town of Oro Valley, as well as Pima County, have let me know that they are unable currently to reduce their requested funding any further than what was originally included when they submitted applications for these TIP projects. So it was just the city of Tucson as well as the RTA that did make adjustments to the budget. So I'm going to share my screen just to have the table as a reference. So hopefully everyone can see this table on my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So what I've done, just to make the adjustments a little clearer, is I just colored them red and bolded them. All of the TIP projects that I did see adjustments made for that the city of Tucson provided. Let me know if any of this is incorrect or doesn't align with what you currently have. And then just the total decrease from the original funding requests that I included a new column for that as well, so you can get an idea of what was reduced currently for each of the projects. And as you can see, here's the available 5307 funding, and we still, like I mentioned, are not in alignment yet. We are for fiscal year 2024, but for fiscal year 2025 onward, we do need to make some additional adjustments. So there's about 3.14 million in excess that needs to be reduced. So anyway, we can talk about that a little bit further later on, but I would like to allow the city of Tucson to discuss their changes and maybe some possible ways in which we can reduce it a little bit further. So I'll leave it to Rhett or whoever wants to discuss this.
Sure. Thank you, Preston. So we dropped 11 buses. We went from 90 to 79 to try to accommodate our regional partners. So that's the number you're seeing, and that dollar amount should be decreased to coincide with that. Regarding trying to bridge that gap, we can actually probably take out that $500,000 in fiscal year 27 for the CNG station to get us closer, and we may be able to drop that in 28 too. Let me double check and see if we can do that.
Okay. And then I can make that adjustment on my end whenever you want to confirm that that's feasible.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove the 500,000 for fiscal year 27 and fiscal year 28.
Okay,
CNG station.
do that.
We don't have a lot of wiggle room on the other capital needs. We've got a lot of capital equipment that is getting to the end of its useful life. Trying to cut back more there, I think, is going to end up costing us more in the long run in terms of maintenance to those vehicles.
So with those two adjustments that did decrease the total by $1 million, still leaves 2.14 million left for these remaining 4 fiscal years. On the RTA side, we did reduce the requested vehicles for fiscal 28 and 26. We removed 1 vehicle for each of those years. I mean, we can, on our end, we can, relook at the calculations. But additionally, I guess similar to what you mentioned, Red, is we're also, we have a number of vehicles that are coming towards the end of their useful life that will need replacements. So, what we have left that we could potentially reduce is, we could probably find something, but it definitely will not be, close to it might be maybe another 100 or 200,000, but I still currently feel that it's going to be difficult to reduce the vehicles that we're requesting any further.
Let's see about $25,000 from preventive maintenance. Let me check with Steve. We definitely don't want to take that out of Sunlink. We're going to need more preventive maintenance there. We could remove 1 bus from 26, 27, and 28. And it looks like Jim's got a question here.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the elephant in the room from my standpoint, and that is at least in 27 and 28, we, if the RTA is not continued, we would not be in a position to further operate the Sun Shuttle services. So at that point in time, we would, well, I guess what I'm questioning is whether we should include funding beyond 27 and 28, or in 27 and 28, or at least get it down to the balanced budget point by reducing RTA funds in 27 and 28. We could look at revisiting that once we have more direction in terms of our continuation. Certainly we would hope to continue, but in the event that the voters don't see fit to continue the RTA beyond 2026, there would be no need for us to have a funding allocated for replacement buses.
So Jim, I guess on the RTA side, what are you suggesting in terms of what we're representing here for those 2 fiscal years, for 27 and 28?
Okay. For fiscal, what I would recommend that in terms of the RTA, that, we're 536.5 out of budget on fiscal 27. I would suggest that we reduce the 799 by that amount.
Okay.
Let's bring it into budget conformance there.
I can enter that in.
And that would just be 799 minus 536.5.
Correct.
Okay.
And we would treat the fiscal 28 in the same fashion. We'll leave the money in there, whatever's remaining. And, clearly, if we do continue on, we'll have, we would want to try to revisit it if it's additional funding, if additional funding presents itself in those years. We may also, if we do have a direction to continue beyond 2026, then at that point in time, what we could do is look at using RTA funds initially to buy new vehicles and adjust our transit budget going forward, depending upon what that looks like as the outcome of any renewal effort. We don't know what the priorities of the voters will be until we've worked through that process with the committee, the CAC, and the RTA board.
Jonathan, you had a question?
Yeah, comment. So I'm a little nervous or not quite comfortable with this proposal. Seems to me that number one, it's speculation at this point, and given that this is a 5-year budget and a 5-year plan, it's basically assuming that this will happen in 27 and 28 from a financial point of view. So it doesn't make sense to me to put in information that is speculative and contingent upon future actions that are kind of beyond our control. And number two, I think the decision to essentially not fund Sun Shuttle services should the RTA pass or should the RTA not pass is probably a decision that's going to have to go above all of our pay grades to a policy level at the board and county board level. And I would think that that decision, should it need to be made, would be made at a later date and not sort of incrementally through a subtle change to a 5-year transit plan through the tip. So I'm uncomfortable with moving that decision forward today, frankly. Do we need to have a vote on this item when we get to a point that we're comfortable moving it forward in the PAG RTA process, Preston and Jim?
From my standpoint, yeah, absolutely, we would need a vote, and it is not our intention to do anything without full exposure of the rationale. I mean, certainly having a discussion, and I think we need to clearly have a discussion about, and I think everybody needs to know that if the RTA is not continued, we're going to have a different reality to work with on some of these services. So, this may actually be useful in terms of waking folks up to, and I don't mean to sound snarky about that, but I think it's important for us to be, as we're weighing these investment decisions, to do so, recognizing that there's risk associated with not continuing, and there is, and I think we all experience this risk. I mean, the state of good repair of the Suntran fleet is important as well. So, I mean, we're all in this together. So this would be a way that we could, balance our budget and recognizing that the needs exceed what's available. It's just a matter of how we parse it out.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on a lot of those points, Jim, and it's an interesting idea for methodology for escalating this issue. The other thing, though, I think that if we're going to come to a vote today, I'm going to vote against this proposal because, from Pima County's point of view, since you know, the Sun Shuttle services a number of the unincorporated areas and our constituents, I guess I'd want us to kind of discuss as a group and decide upon what we think is a fair and equitable cutting back of transit services. And I'm not sure I would agree at the outset that cutting or ceasing operation with much of the Sun Shuttle program is fair in relation to all the other transit service that we provide to the region. Why should the Sun Shuttle service alone suffer the consequence of you know, not having enough funding for the region? So
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate your comment, and to be fair, you know, we have seen a fairly significant trimming by Tucson as well here. So you know, I think it's it's a shared burden we all experience, and you know, we're all looking at what our capital needs are, and somebody's got to cut. I'm suggesting that you know, perhaps there's a way to look at it with respect to, you know, Sun Shuttle, and you know, do we extend or offer or do we include as we're budgeting into the future for Sun Shuttle, that we include some additional funding for upgrades of the vehicle fleet as we're moving forward, and that would be a capital cost, and it could be a capital cost in the RTA plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was what was originally contemplated when we developed the original RTA, was that there would be a tranche of funding that would be available for acquisition of new vehicles. So, you know, we could look at that in that light as well. So, you know, we're not trying to deprive the system, but recognizing that we've got, you know, some you know, some uncertainty in the future of one particular service. Would that you know, be a justification for looking at perhaps in the interest of balancing the budget, looking at that service?
So just real quick, we also dropped 78 Sun vans as well. So we've tried to do our best to cut our capital needs back. We could also drop a bus in 26 to bridge that gap, cut a bus in 27, and cut a bus in 28.
Well, you know, if you do that, then you know, maybe we can look at reestablishing some of or you know, restoring some funding into the RTA Sun Shuttle service into the future. But you know, again, you know, we'll have the opportunity to revisit this. You know, it's a 5-year program that we look at annually, and certainly look at whenever we're developing a TIP process. So that you know, will give us an opportunity to revisit this in the future.
I think what would be helpful if we're going to be moving in this direction today, to have a little bit more information about what cuts both the city and RTA, county, and potentially Marana are making, so that this is more clear and more understood by those. Because just having Brett explain, you know, verbally what cuts he's offering up today is really helpful, because it, like you said, Jim, it's kind of showing that we're kind of all sharing the burden. But I think that's not going to be at all apparent to anybody else. And I think having maybe a written record of what cuts are being proposed, or what are ultimately approved by this group moving forward to balance the budget, so that there's an understanding by any of those watching and reading that those cuts are being shared by all jurisdictions and with different transit services. I think that'll help our cause, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So moving forward, if we are wanting to align the budget today, should I do something similar with fiscal year 2028 that we did for 27 for the RTA's project request, or how would you like me to proceed?
You know, I guess from my standpoint, I'd Rhett, are we, you'd mentioned potentially considering some additional cuts. Is that some, I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
Jim, we can do that to try to, in the interest of just, cooperation. Yeah, we could do 26, 27, 28, take a bus out. Steve's got his hand up and I think he's going to chime in here. So Steve.
Well, you know me, I've always got an opinion. I thought, and I'm just trying to follow your spreadsheet, Preston, from what I thought Red had said. So had he suggested that we could balance 25 by taking 210 grand out of preventative maintenance? Did we talk about that?
We didn't, Steve.
So that would be,
Still need to do that. Yeah.
so that would be balanced.
Yep. 25 would be balanced.
And then the cost to us for a bus in 26 is about 800 grand. And I think it's pushing, let's see, if I look at I'm trying to look at the pricing for coaches in 20. It's 844 grand in 27. 900 grand in 28. So I mean, I was thinking that if we took a bus out at 26, if we took 800 grand out, that would allow you to put 200 grand more back in your buses in 26. And maybe you could offset that was something in 28, for instance, by dropping that number. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
The other editorial comment, being a glass half full kind of guy, is that the federal legislation provides for an increase in funding each year. And I think while we have to cost constrain, I guess, based on what's available today, I think we can assume that there's going to be increased funding, as we move out. Well, we don't want to program it. If we take a little off the table and there's an agreement to add some of that stuff back, then we can be a little more comfortable in making adjustments.
Okay. So just looking at fiscal year 2025, you mentioned removing 210 from, would it be the tip ID 6803?
Probably.
Okay. Did you want me to do that right now?
I don't know. What do you think, Rhett?
In the interest of being a good partner, I think that's fine in order to bring us in. I think to your point, Steve, we do know that we're going to get more formula funding moving forward. So I think we can hopefully work together and get some of that back.
Okay. Okay, great.
So
I did that.
the other thing that I'll add, just for information, we're building a CNG storage, CNG fueling station at the North Yard. Its original design was to have capabilities of fueling about 100 buses. But one of our goals was to add funding so that we could expand the fueling capability at the North Yard to handle 200 buses, which would give us the ability to shut down the South Yard and repurpose it. We've taken the additional funding to grow the CNG plant out of this 5-year program, which means that there's a likelihood, if we couldn't afford it with our current grant funds, that we might not be able to expand the CNG fueling station, which means we wouldn't be able to close the South Yard. Just just a point of information. It was actually more important to us to replace aging vehicles because Brett said the maintenance costs will kill us if we don't.
Yeah.
So we'll run diesel longer. No, I'm kidding. Right now, what we have too many CNG buses, and they're all fueled at the South Yard. But on the weekends, we actually have to move part of the fleet up here to operate out of the North Yard on weekend service.
Just out of curiosity, Steve, do you, in the long term, do you see concentrating all your fleet at the North Yard as being, the most efficient deployment, or are you? I mean, I know you're looking at needing to make some significant investment in the North Yard there in order to support the CNG.
Well, I mean, there's a school of thought that our deadhead time increase is coming out of the North Yard. But you can deal with some of that by putting them in revenue service in downtown instead of the end of the line. I think the concern that we had is we're operating out of 2 yards is not very effective. So if and this yard is designed for a 250 bus fleet, so we could make the move. And then the South Yard, I think, needs some significant investment in it too. So we'd start to limit our exposure to, the facility kinds of challenges if we were in 1 yard. We just thought we'd make you a deal.
We're all for deals.
RTA, you could buy the South Yard. Actually, the city uses, I think they need to expand in that area too, don't they, Red?
Yeah, Steve, I think so. Yeah, I actually know so. Yeah, streets needs the space. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a good transition between the two.
Well, just out of curiosity, Rhett, you'd mentioned that you might be able to take a vehicle out of 26. If you took 800 grand out of 26 and took whatever remains and put it into CNG, would that be useful?
Sure. I think I'd rather put that into preventive maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't you
Okay.
agree, Steve?
Yeah, I agree, Red.
Okay.
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 So
did
let's take out the 800 grand for the bus. And that leaves us 178,200. So we'd put the balance into preventative maintenance. Is that
Yep.
reasonable?
Yes, very reasonable.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let me do that.
Okay. So
Wait, what happened? Hold on.
I think you added a 1 in front of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Add 178,000, not 1 million.
Yeah, that would help. What is it?
Okay. That looks good.
There we are.
Hey, 0. All right.
Perfect.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that just leaves us the last year out of balance. I don't believe we have a duty to balance the last year, do we, Preston?
Based on my conversations with Jamie, he made it seem like we should be balancing the full 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we could do that. If we looked at some combination of reductions. Does that seem reasonable to folks?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what do we got a target of 769 grand.
Mhm.
I know my good friend from Pima County is going to be unhappy if I cut the 1022. Would you guys be willing to do another bus out of 28 and then put the balance, whatever's remaining, into preventative maintenance?
Did we already take the one? So we were going to take a bus out of 26, 27, 28.
Okay.
I guess we didn't have to take, we didn't have to take a bus out of 27 though, I believe, right?
But let's take it out of 28.
Okay.
And that way we leave the RTA bus intact, or buses intact, and then we add whatever balances back into your maintenance.
What was it 800,000 again, or did you say that number was different?
Yeah.
28.
800,000. Oh no, it's more, isn't it, Steve?
Pardon me, how much?
That the buses they get expensive by year.
Yeah,
contract,
they're
so-
about actually 28,
Uh-huh.
budgeted 972, 650.
Wow.
That, hey, look at all the balance, the frickin' budget.
Oh yeah. Well, now we added 230 or 203,650 back to your maintenance.
Yeah. What a deal. Now, okay. Let me ask you a question. Preston, is this federal money you're looking at or total?
Yeah, this is all ST or 5307,
Yeah.
It's all
it's-
federal, right? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
and the STBG Flex is
Okay,
is the only other source that you got in there. So this zeroes it out. I know we skinned the RTA in 27. I think we could probably make that up with funds if RTA is extended. And I know that we're working with, in our capital replacement budget. I know that we've been working with Tucson on some electric vehicles, so that will help us with our fleet. That really isn't captured in this. So with that, do you think that you could support this, Jonathan?
I'd like to, but I think I'm not gonna, I think I can't with good conscience, just because there's too many unknowns and
so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so.
I
Not
just
yet.
wondered if you had any suggestions then.
Yeah, right.
Well, so we're trying to resolve.
Yeah.
Now, can you remind me, Preston, what we had in there for that year? What we start out with, where we're in fiscal 27 for Sun Shuttle bus replacements.
It was.
We had 799.
799. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically, we've cut it to about a third of what it was.
Yeah, that's correct.
And when you were doing the bus replacements or the Sun Shuttle replacement services, had we incorporated those electric vehicles into that schedule?
No, I don't believe those electric vehicles were included in that.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I guess, from my standpoint, it looks like we may be we may be whole, Jonathan, if we include those 4 additional electric buses that we've got coming in through the low-no grant. Now, we don't know how they're going to operate, but in terms of fleet size, we'd be about the same.
Yeah, if that's possible, then that's awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah, that was and I have to thank my colleagues over at Suntran and the city for that, because it was an opportunity for us to look at a way to perhaps make the grant a little stronger, because it had more than one player in it. So we're grateful for that, and we're grateful for the benefits. So yeah, I think this is a pretty slick deal. So with that, I'm actually not troubled by reducing the replacement schedule that year. And again, thinking that, with a new tranche of money, if we do find ourselves at that point in time, and we are continued, we'll be able to have a continuation funded buses potentially. If we're not continued, there's going to be a reduction in service most likely. So the demand for additional vehicles would probably be lessened as well. So from my standpoint, we can make it work either way.
Or it can fail to work either way, depending on right.
Roll of the dice. Yeah. You want to bet on diesel futures? So yeah.
Right.
Looks like we have a question from Michael Alexander.
Yes, Mike from Oro Valley. In FY27, you reduced the budget based on the premise that RTA next does not pass. So there's one of 2 ways I'm thinking this needs to go. You either have to do, because you're already going to know in FY26, the vote has already happened. So you deduct 26 and 28 as well, or you put it back in for 27, because you're basing on, I think. Well, if you're going to do it for 1 year, don't you need to do it for every year?
Well, I mean, we could. Your point is right on. I mean, we may not be operating beyond 26, at which point in time we as RTA would not be needing vehicles. However, whoever, I would expect that there would be a continuation of in a more reduced capacity by perhaps Pima County, if because Pima County, we basically acquired the routes from Pima County, and if we no longer exist, I would expect that there would be a transference, or at least give county the opportunity to we would transfer the vehicles back and the assets and allow the contracts to transition over. But my expectation is that we would have to probably look at a reduction in services, because there are services that we're offering that if they're not funded, they're not funded. And those demand vehicles, or we'll release them as the case may be.
Jim, if you're confident and comfortable that fiscal 27 could be the original bus replacements could be funded with the savings due to the electric buses that you mentioned earlier, would you be willing to put that number back up to where it was for fiscal 27, and then have the onus be on RTA for making those adjustments to make that work, rather than kind of slashing the federal allocation in this year with this present budget, if that makes any sense?
I'm not sure I understand, but what I would tell you is that if the RTA continues beyond 2026, we're not going to. I do not envision us reducing services.
Right.
The operational expenses, we have to make a decision from our budgetary standpoint outside of the federal funding. What makes the most sense to us? Do we spend more money on maintenance, or do we buy some new vehicles? My sense is that if we have a a continuation, we'll probably be in a position where we would be able to fund that.
Mhm.
One of the things I would hope we have a discussion about, and when we go beyond or when we start talking about RTA next, is what is our priorities, and should we be looking at some new facilities and new well, I think there will have to be a conversation. I should say that there should be a conversation about what does the region want to do from a transit perspective as we move forward beyond 2026, and part of that could be a capital component. Certainly, there's an operations component that would we would need to recognize if we continue on, I think we all ought to be looking down the road as to how we convert our fleets over to becoming more sustainable, and both in terms of fuel sources and long-term maintenance. Just out of curiosity, does the city have any? I mean, I know we've been working with y'all on the Lono. Do you have a sense as to when those vehicles might be delivered? I know it's early in the process and all of that, but if you've got any thoughts about that, that'd probably be helpful.
That's a great question, Jim. I believe we're probably, a year and a half out, Steve, on the 40-foot electric buses. I don't know on the paratransit or on the cutaways.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the process is, the grant will end up submitted and go through the approval process. We have a spec already developed with Gillig, so it's a matter of getting on their on the schedule for the.
That's easy.
Yep. Then we got to start working with Creative, both of us, since both groups have the cutaways. Start working with Creative on Creative Bus Works on the spec and starting to talk about delivery schedules. And I would suspect at some time you and I and Rhett would get with Jeff Rock over here and get Creative in to start talking.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
But I don't know. I mean, it's ours is a little more definitive since we've got a spec and they're already manufacturing them. It may take us a minute longer, but it shouldn't. I don't think it would be that. We save a lot of time eliminating the procurement process.
Right. And yeah, absolutely. And my guess is that these newer vehicles are going to be in a lot of demand, and the queue is going to be something we're going to have to contend with. So I was kind of just in my own mind thinking we were probably talking 25, 26 before we saw those things.
Oh, gosh, I would hope not, but I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so I don't know.
I like that.
But I guess a year and a half, if Rhett was pretty close on, that would put it early 25, wouldn't it? So, or yeah, something like getting that ballpark.
Okay.
Michael, did you have another question, or looks like your hand is still
No, I
raised?
did not. No,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm. So yeah, as it stands now, we are within fiscal constraints. Was there any additional discussion that anyone in the group wanted to bring up? So,
Well, I'll just mention that I think even though I'm all for cooperating and I do understand that if RTA Next doesn't pass, we're going to be facing some bigger decisions and challenges in the future. But at this early point, I'm still going to vote no for this particular proposal before us today. And if I'm directed to do otherwise, then that could change. But at this point, I'm going to vote no for this particular proposal.
Well, we get another crack at it with TPC, don't we?
We sure do.
Okay. Well, if nothing else is, if no one else has anything to state regarding this agenda item, I would like to ask for a motion.
You're asking for a motion to pass this particular plan, Preston, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that was the original intent for this agenda item, was to hopefully negotiate to a point where we could proceed and bring this list to the TPC. So yeah, that's is what we're aiming to do.
Well, if we want a motion, I can make a motion, City of Tucson, to pass this.
Can I get a second?
I'll second. It's Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. So if no additional discussion is requested on this motion, I will now move to a roll call vote by jurisdiction. All in favor, say aye whenever your jurisdiction is called. So I'll just go down the list. City of Tucson,
Aye.
City of South Tucson, Pasquayaki Tribe, Pima County,
Nay.
Town of Marana,
Aye.
Town of Saharita, and Town of Oro Valley.
Aye.
So the motion has passed with all aye except for the Pima County as a nay. So this current project will be advanced to the PAG Transportation Planning Committee for tip development. So that just leads us to item number 4 on the agenda, which is just the adjournment. I want to ask if there's any additional announcements or comments that that anyone in this group wanted to make before adjourning this meeting.
I've got one, Preston, City Tucson. We've added a new transit services manager, James Castaneda, as well as Lauren McCullough as our trans service coordinator. But I think we made that announcement last month. But so we've got 2 new members, and we're very excited. They're going to be valuable contributors to the region. So that's all we had.
Thanks, Rhett. Anyone else have any additional announcements or comments? Okay, well, if there aren't any other comments, then I would like to thank everyone for participating. Our next meeting may be November 8th, depending on if we have agenda items we want to discuss. Since we had negotiated this, the TIP funding request, I'm not sure if, we will have items that are needed to discuss for November 8th, but I will keep everyone updated on if there are some items that would be good to bring up with with the transit working group. So just keep an eye out for any sort of additional information, in your inbox. So yeah, if there's no other announcements, we'll adjourn the meeting. And
Preston.
Yes.
Quick, sorry.
Sorry.
Can you send us, you might have said this already, but can you just send us out the revised spreadsheet sooner than later?
Yes, I will do that. I will yeah, send this out to the transit working group, so you can have that for reference.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Any other requests or comments? Okay, so yeah, I will adjourn this meeting. So thank you for participating, and we will talk again at the next meeting.
Thank you, Preston.